Well, good evening, everybody. Thanks for getting on the call and joining us. We'll just do a little intro here. So while we wait for people to jump on, this is one of our ways of getting our messaging and introducing our people to the rest of the country. These Facebook Lives. It's one of the only ways as a new minor party that we can get our messaging out. So we have a lovely candidate announcement today, a South Island woman that's coming along to represent us, and she will be the 13th candidate for us to represent Democracy NZ. It's been an interesting few days, actually. I note that just in financial news, the IMF have said that projected us as a country to have the worst GDP in the world. Of 146 odd countries, we're projected to be at the bottom of the list, and that is I would imagine that would be making history. So we've got a government at the moment that is doing the worst job that you could ever imagine. They're doing about the worst performance measurements of any government that New Zealand's ever had, and I would say the worst. It's the worst. Anyway, we're quite excited. We're really excited because we've got our 13th candidate. She hails from Kaikoura. She actually lives in Loburn. She's lived there for 20 years. She's married with 2 kids and 1 grandson. She has quite an interesting background. So I'd like to bring her on. Sandra Campbell, welcome. Hi, how are you, Sandra? How you doing?
Good. Very good indeed. Down here in lovely Loburn.
Lovely Loburn. Oh, that's great. Hey, look, we're really excited to have you on the team. We're really excited to have you welcome you to the Democracy NZ team. We have, as you know, you've been on a couple of Zoom calls so far, and you've met a few of our good people, and you'll see that we have some sensationally good candidates, and we've got an amazing volunteer team out there of people. And one thing that I felt that we were a little bit light on is that we didn't have any representation in the Upper South Island. We've got a good collection of people in and around Christchurch and down the coast, but we didn't have anyone representing our Kaikoura Blenheim area. And so when you put your hand up and offered to be part of the team, we were really excited. And I got to tell you, you came highly recommended by 2 of our current candidates. In fact, they couldn't speak more highly of you. In fact, I think there would have been trouble in the camp if I hadn't accepted your application. So, Sandy, can you just tell us a little bit about yourself and what started your journey?
Yes, well, it's a huge, big privilege, Matt, to be on board ship with all you wonderful people. As you said, I've been on a couple of Zoom calls. I do know some of the people already, but it's really great to connect with them all. And this is a very important time in New Zealand, and certainly lots of people are doing things that they wouldn't normally be doing. And I'm sure that all of us who are stepping outside of our comfort zone, that's what it's all about. So, how did it all start for me? It's stuff happens around you, and sometimes you just don't really know what the final straw is that actually pushes you right over to a place where you never thought you would go. And I guess that's me. Standing up and shouting from the rooftops, it's not so much me. I'm more the quiet, reserved one, doing the support crew behind the scenes a lot of the ways. But there was too much going on that finally I realised that if I didn't do something more than what I was already doing, which I am doing quite a lot, I couldn't really face myself in the mirror because I can't let down all the people who I could possibly have done something for. So part of who I am is my name, and my name, Sandra, means helper of mankind. Now, when you're a helper of mankind, you can't sit in a chair while there's all this stuff going on and all these people, aren't coping very well. You can't just sit there and say, hey, I'm good. So that has been a part of what has got me so fired up and so incensed and so enraged about so many things. It's like, okay, just do the unthinkable, put your hand up. I did suggest, other people who could have been, very good as well. But anyway, Here I am. I need lots of people's support, and because this is a team effort, isn't it? We've got to go places with this, and we need Democracy NZ in Parliament, a voice of truth, a voice of integrity, because that's missing, and we need to bring that there.
Hey, Sandra, do you know a guy called Teacher Joe?
I certainly do know a guy called Teacher Joe.
Well, he's made a couple of lovely comments about you. We're looking forward to hearing from you, and he said he's proud of you. Now, I know Teacher Joe's a bit of a character down there. He's a bit of a local celebrity too, isn't he? He's a passionate guy. He's a passionate guy. I see him on a couple of opponents' podcasts every now and then. But
he's a trailblazer, and he's an enormous role model for so many of us. What Joe has done for, all of us people who have found ourselves in a very challenging, difficult situation, we have the utmost admiration for everything he continues to do. So I would just like to tell Joe, hey, you carry on. You're doing a fantastic job.
Yeah, well, we'd love to have had Teacher Joe as a candidate, but I couldn't talk him into it. I couldn't bribe him or blackmail him, but I had spoken to him about potentially representing us, but it wasn't his place at the moment. But he's definitely one of those guys that's one of those people that's contributing to the cause and the fight and the injustice that's going on. Yeah. Now, Sandy, look. So let's just talk a little bit about you and your family. So I know that you've got this pretty awesome sort of thing that makes you quite unique in terms of aeronautical. So let's cover off that. Let's talk about that.
Okay, so we've been in the aviation industry with our business. Our main business is my husband's very clever, and he invented a hard shell flying helmet, and he was building himself a Tiger Moth at the time, and then he had the opportunity to show his first helmet to Sir Tim Wallis, who was the icon of aviation. And at that time, it was after Sir Tim had had his very bad accident in his Spitfire, and he had severe head injuries, but he was on the way to recovery. But it has meant that that brought to a halt Sir Tim's flying career. So he was always, in fact, he was the first sort of advocate and ambassador for our helmets. All those years ago, 23 years ago, when they were running up the Hurricane and down here at Christchurch Airport, and he said, could he please have as many of his warbird pilots for the 2000-year air show with the helmet. So at that stage, Ivan had only just invented it, and so suddenly it was around the clock procedure to try and find, because they're all tailor-made, they're all made, custom. So he had to figure out how this was going to happen anyway, with lots of sort of stuff that just happened. He was able to do that. So that's where that happened. So that started off, and then we went to the big air show and in America, which was the biggest air show in the world, and that's where we met the guy who had the Supermarine Spitfire kits. And when you say kit, it's not actually, it's a big project, a 2 or 3 or 4 year project to put these aircraft together. And so it was probably the second or third year we met up. In fact, he was in Australia that time, Mike O'Sullivan, really cool dude. And so he asked if we would become the agent for the Spitfire. So, things happened, and here we are. So Ivan eventually, he was busy building other aircraft, and we were doing it was a crazy time, and we were doing the helmets as well. So but anyway, he eventually finished it, and now, yeah, it's a beautiful aeroplane. It's a very complex airplane to fly. It's not for your first time flyers by any means, and we don't have a very long air runway here, but so he has to be on the game when he's landing here. So I remember when it was first test flying, here was me in my office, because I can see the end of the runway. So I would have the brakes on, sitting at my office desk, because I knew he was getting near to the end. And so, but anyway, he's good now, so it's good. I don't need to worry. So yeah, we've flown all around New Zealand, and we're looking forward to coming and meeting some of our Democracy NZ people. We'll be able to land at Kaikoura, and we'll be able to land at Omaka as well. So that's going to be pretty exciting. We'll look forward to people coming, and yeah, we always get an amazing reception, because people love watching Spitfires take off and land.
So that Spitfire is actually it's not a rebuilt old one. It's a
no. It's a brand new. It's a replica, so it's 90%, and it's got an aircraft engine. It's got an LS2 Corvette Chevy Corvette engine. 400 horsepower or something, and that's all technical.
Yeah, and you'll be going to some of your meetings in your Spitfire.
We will, yes. We've already seen the Kaikoura beach hoppers on somewhere in September, so hopefully we'll be able to fly there. Of course, it's weather permitting, and we will definitely do what we can, and we'll just fly. You know, it's a good thing. So we'll get a little bit of
And we, I met you and your hubby, who's an ex-copper. Hey,
he's an ex-copper.
Yeah. And I met you at the did I meet you at the Rangiora meeting?
Yep, Rangiora and the Aurora Centre. Yeah, the Aurora Centre one. And when I introduced you to a couple of your candidates. Good.
Yeah. Okay, that's interesting. Yeah, and I remember the Rangiora meeting. We had the town hall, and we had it full, didn't we? Both levels.
Oh,
that was pretty interesting. Yeah.
It was a fantastic night. Yeah. So when I heard you speak, that was the first time that I realised that actually there was somebody who was on that, was talking sense, and we suddenly realized that, oh my goodness, this is amazing. So thank you for what you're doing as well, Matt. It's amazing what's going on.
Hey, look, well, we're all in the same boat. We just want our country back, don't we? So hey,
we do.
So with that leads to my next question. What do you think's wrong with the current system? Give me your rundown.
Have you got 2 days?
Narrow it down to a few minutes. Narrow it down.
Look, I'm so sick of the current political system in New Zealand. We've got politicians, all they do, every time they open their mouth, you can be sure of one thing, they're going to tell a lie. It's going to be a lie. Ooh. It's either going to be a big lie or a little lie, whichever way it is. There's no integrity left in our government. There's dishonesty. There's so many things that I'm sure most of New Zealanders find really repugnant. Okay, we don't expect anything from our politicians anymore, because there is such a low level of everything. They use all the same hollow, deceiving, electioneering words, and as I was thinking the other day, it's just like fake chocolate. It looks all nice and enticing, and then on the inside it's just hollow, dark, and empty. We're so used, like everything now, there's a fake version of it, isn't there? So we've got fake news, we've got fake meat, we've got fake people, we've got fake everything. So we've got to stop doing fake. And these guys, they're pretty fake. There's nothing real about them. And what they do though is they promise you the sun and the moon and everything else. It's election time now, so they're saying all these, and then when they get in, they deliver completely the opposite. And people do get a little bit gullible. They believe what these guys are saying, because people need hope, don't they? And
well, I'll tell you one thing, Sandra. I've made a real point of we've been going around the country, just under 100 meetings, and we I have made a real point of making sure that I don't make promises I can't deliver on.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
there's a lot
That's
of people who just say, some of the current batch of politicians and some past ones trying to get back in, that are just say anything that
I
they
know.
think will get
We'll get the money.
the yeah. And I'm thinking
Yeah.
of one person now who's just registered her party, and she is her. When you look at her, what she's promising, it's the world. And coming from a point of view of having a term in Parliament, I look at her and it reminds me of that Australian show. She's dreaming. Tell them she's dreaming. It's like unbelievable. But we stand by what we say. We stand by our word. We will honour everything that we do, and that's why I've made a point of not over promising on what we're going to do. I've always said that. Let's have the common sense approach.
Yeah, it's the same in business. You know, you under promise and over deliver. You don't over promise and under deliver. It doesn't make people feel good when they feel like they've been cheated. You know, so it's like what happens. People, you know, we want hope and we want to look forward to something, but then when the government lets us down, it wears us down, it silences us. Then we get too tired to fight anymore and we just give up. So, and I hate that when people are silenced and they just lose, you know, part of who they are. To me, I mean, it's just a pathway of lies and broken promises. And I was thinking we'd all be millionaires, actually, if we had been paid $1 for every promise that they had broken. You know, everybody in New Zealand would be a millionaire. So, there's just so many things that need changing. And whether it's a system that makes them behave like this, I don't know. You know, I'm not I haven't been in Parliament and I'm not a politician by any, but we have to look at why they say things, you know, what's going on.
Yeah, look, one of the things I'd like to bring back into politics is integrity. So you stand, I was brought up that you shake a person's, you look them in the eye, you shake their hand, you say you're going to do something, you do it. And that's my view.
Yeah, it's very rare and very uncommon for like the general public now. They've completely lost trust in all the government departments that we should have trust in. It's gone. You know, we're just not engaging with them like we should.
So tell me, what do you think needs to change, Sandra? What do you think?
Okay, well, yeah, again, the political system. I was thinking, if these people who are in power right now are proud of what their achievements, what they should be able to do is they should publish every law, every regulation, and every act in our public papers, and so that we'd be able to see what was going on. They shouldn't be doing things sort of secretly behind our backs, late at night, sneaking in all this legislation and stuff. It's like, and it's being passed under urgency. And I'm thinking, so what's the emergency that is so important for them to just start doing this stuff? And I don't think it's just not sitting very well with me at all. I think they've lost their moral and ethical compass completely. There's a whole lot of stuff that I'm hearing that's coming down the line. And hey, look, this is not the New Zealand of my childhood. And I can't stand by and just watch while everything disappears and without doing something about it. And I just thought the other day, well, and I found this wee saying, courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is feeling the fear and doing it anyway. And I'm thinking, you know, most of us are probably feeling a bit like that. So all our freedoms are under siege right now. Our freedom of speech, that's just about gone out the door. Our freedom of choice, you know, that's been severely compromised of time. And we've got these politicians, here they are with their egos, you know, they're competing with each other. They're trying to prove themselves. They're cheap and hollow words, and they make other people look bad so that they can look better. But that's like a little ego, but a big ego, which people don't realize is the opposite of that. The people with the big egos carry the compassion, the integrity, the self-worth, discernment, humility, confidence, all those really good things. So that's actually what we need. And the big ego guys, they act as guiding lights for people. And we certainly need some decent guiding lights right now. And, you know, we live in this beautiful country of New Zealand. It is a fantastic country. I've lived overseas and been overseas. And when you come home, you're just so grateful for such a fantastic country. But our politicians, they don't match the beauty of the soul of our country, do they? They're completely disconnected, and there's just no connection. New Zealanders deserve better than that. They deserve high caliber representatives who speak the truth. They have integrity, who can use common sense. Now that's just about gone out of fashion. It's about illegal to have anybody with common sense these days. So, you know, there's so much going on that every subject and everything that we think about is you know, under pressure, and we need to do something.
Absolutely, and I mean that's why I'm doing what I'm doing. Like I could have kept my mouth shut and kept my head down, and probably would have been the MP in Northland again, but for national. But I knew that something was really wrong. I knew that that it seemed to me that there was no opposition speaking out against this, in my view, a tyrannical government, and definitely the most incompetent and corrupt government that I've ever seen. And I don't use those words lightly because it's true. And I felt that, you know, when people are being forced to do things against their better judgment, against their will, against the Bill of Rights, I felt I had to do something. I really had to speak up. And the journey that I've been on for the last 18 months has been an incredible journey. It's certainly been a really hard road because starting a new party from scratch is very hard. But what's been amazing for me, Sandra, is the people that have been joining us. I mean, we've had a couple of couple of upsets or mishaps on the way, but then I don't know any party that doesn't have that. But I also have been blown away by the caliber of the people that have been joining our party, both as candidates, as volunteers, and as members, even down to our board. You know, we've got a doctor, a practicing doctor on our board. We've got a dental surgeon as a candidate, and a registered nurse. We've got business owners. We've got engineers. We've got financial people. We've got everything in our team, and it's incredible. And one thing we all have in common is a passion for our country and a desire to stand up. Most of them had never dreamed that they would ever consider being a politician, because I don't think anyone really aspires to be a politician. But I tell you what, it's been amazing meeting all these different people, and you're one of them. Our paths crossed at the meeting, and you're a very experienced person. You've got a lot of life experience that you're going to bring to the party. And also you didn't really have a burning desire to be a candidate, but I know that conversations I've had with you felt that, you knew that we didn't have a person in Kaikoura, and you live in Kaikoura, so Kaikoura electorate,
Yes.
I bet.
Yes, Kaikoura electorate.
You're in Lowburn. But you just stepped up to the plate because you wanted to help us out, really. That's, if you boil it down to a nutshell, that's what it is, isn't it?
Yeah, I just needed to be able to put two big ticks on my voting paper, not just one big tick and thinking, what am I going to do with the other one? Nothing. So, you know.
Well, that brings me to voting strategy and parliamentary parties. Do you have any comment on that?
Yeah. Yes, because when we think about our votes, we want them to be used with integrity and respect. And, you know, with these people offering all these things and that they're telling people that they're going to do this and they're going to do that, and then they turn around and they don't do it. I don't think that's just not okay. It's like, it's really diminishing the person's vote, and that takes my breath away, actually. So, and especially in New Zealand here, look, we were one of the first countries to get the vote for women. Those suffragettes, I don't know if any of you have watched that amazing suffragette film, but they put everything on the line. It's a bit like what we're doing now. We're fighting for freedom, and of course, women, they were fighting for freedom to participate in the elections, and freedom to choose, and that's what this is all about. It's nothing different. So it's sort of sacrilegious to their hard work if we do not are able to use the opportunity of using our vote, so that, again, our voices, our female voices, which are pretty important, can be heard. So it was their valiant spirit and courage to be heard that won through, and they had to undergo some terrible things. So I think the only way for the women of New Zealand to honour our suffragettes is to make sure we vote. And that was another reason. It's like, if I don't stand, none of us can fulfil our voting responsibilities, because there's no one that I want to vote for. I can't vote for the best of a worst there's a group of people. I can't just decide, well, they're probably the best of a very, very bad lot. I can't do that. That's so unprincipled for me. And, and they're talking about wasted votes and all this sort of stuff. And yeah, I'm sure there's a whole lot of, strategic, meaningful stuff that people have researched, and it might make sense. But for my conscience and my moral compass, I just can't do that. So the thing is, it's a really simple thing. Now, minor parties become major parties because people vote for them. And so people just need to vote. Now, Labour and National, our old, the two stalwart big parties in New Zealand, how did they become big? People voted for them, and people were saying, yeah, but it's just no point voting for. But to me, the biggest wasted vote at this time would be to vote for any of those people who are not standing for any of your best interests. None of them have the best interests of New Zealanders at heart, do they? None of them. So I'm afraid that there's just no answer other than, Democracy NZ. It's a David and Goliath battle, isn't it? This whole thing is David versus Goliath.
Yeah, it absolutely is, Sandy. But I can tell you this, we've got the best chance of making it across the line, because by far the easiest way to get into Parliament is by winning an electorate seat. I mean, that's been there's two minor parties in Parliament now that when they were at the lowest point. I'll give you an example. ACT in 2017. They got 5.5% party vote. So that we got 2% on our highest polling on the leaderboard. We got 2%. They got 0.5%, but David Seymour won his seat and he got into Parliament, and he sat there for 3 years and made a few moves, and now he's nine odd MPs strong, and may well grow on that for the next election. Well, for us, winning a seat, and the Maori Party, in 2020 they got 1.2%, so they got less than us, and they won a seat, and now they got 2 MPs. And so the idea that pretty much all the other minor parties won't get 5%, especially with the splintering that's been going on with the freedom movement. And so they won't get 5%. None of them will win a seat. So effectively, they're all going to the people voting for them are not going to get representation. But we have a chance of winning Northland, and I've been pitching this to the North and centre right voters. They can party vote the party that they've traditionally supported if that's what they want to do. But they can candidate vote me, and there's no downside to it, because I'm on the chain. I'm going to bring some good people in with us, and we will be the change of government. We are part of the change of government team. It has to happen. And I might mention this now at this time. It might be a good opportunity to present that. Recently there was a poll done. Okay, no, we've got a question here. What happened to the poll reality we're doing in Northland? Okay, well, I'll tell you what, that's a really interesting thing, and I'll explain. They polled in Northland, and the question that they asked was, if there was an election held tomorrow, which party's candidate would you vote for? And then they listed the parties, not the candidates' names. So it was pretty much a party vote question disguised. It meant to be a candidate vote question, but it was a party vote question. And it gave the result of what the party vote was. So National were up in the 30s, and Labour were down in the teens and all 20s, and we were down at our best party vote that we've got at any time, which was 2%, which is not bad for a party that's less than 12 months old. But everyone translated that into saying, oh, that's my result, a 2%, so therefore I don't have a chance in hell. So what we did was and 64%, so it was wrongly worded, and 64% of the people in the survey could not name the national candidate by name. And that's after they'd spent a fortune doing a mail out to every household in Northland. 2 weeks before that poll, 3 weeks before, there was a brochure, coloured fold-out brochure, a very expensive one, went out to every household in Northland. And yet 64% of them couldn't even name who the candidate was. So we did our own polling with this very same company, right?
Yeah.
And we asked the question, if there was an election held tomorrow, which candidate would you vote for? And we listed them by name, not by party.
Yes.
And I was within 13% of the leader, which was the national candidate.
Wow.
And I was neck and neck with the Labour candidate. And then way back was the New Zealand First and ACT. So a totally different result. And which, because the question asked was a electorate, a candidate question. And what came out of that for me was that when I was in 2020, I was running in Northland. The big poll done just before the election, I was 20% ahead of the Labour candidate. And in the election, I lost my seat in the special votes. I won my seat on the night, but I lost it in the specials. So for me, that poll that everyone saw, where I was at 2%, was not a good result at all. So we are right in the money there. We are right in the money. So I'm telling people, Northland voters, centre-right voters, you can split your vote strategically. Vote for your party if you must, because that's the party vote that decides the number of MPs. Give me your candidate vote. I will bring people into Parliament with me, and I will make sure that whatever and I've said no Labour, no Greens, no Maori Party. Sorry, but we won't talk with them at all. As far as I'm concerned, they need to go. We will not negotiate with them at all. That we have an opportunity to change the government, but we have a government that actually respects our rights, our Bill of Rights, due process, parliamentary procedures. And also for me, I want to start charging and calling out the climate change catastrophe narrative that has been pumped down our throats for the last. Did you notice that 2 years we heard nothing about climate change, Sandra? Because we had all we heard. And then COVID went to one side, and all of a sudden the climate came back on this.
But a few years ago it was climate cooling, and then that didn't get much traction, obviously, on the Time magazine. Big climate cooling, but now it's climate heating, or whatever they called it, global warming, whatever they're calling it. And it's like, so that didn't work, so we'll try this, shall we? It's just appalling what's going on.
I want to comment on this one from Carol, right? So the strategy I talked about party voting, and that was for Northland only, Carol. The rest of the country, we are running a full-on 2 ticks campaign for our candidates, and party vote, because every party vote that we get from around the country, if I win my Northland seat, will count towards extra people like Sandra, like Gordon, like Liao, and I won't name all our candidates, but we've got 13 of them. Those people that will bring more of them in with me. So every party vote counts. So around the country, party vote. So thanks, Carol, for asking that question. That's great.
I'm happy if people give me 2 ticks, Matt.
Yeah, you're a 2-ticker as well. Yep. So we say party vote or 2 ticks everywhere. Hang on a minute. I've just got to read this question here. Basically, we will look at that. We will look at who the country votes, right? The majority, and I believe it'll probably be a centre-right government, because the current lot they couldn't do a worse job. So I believe the country is waking up to the fact that we've got the worst government possible, and they're going to go more centre-right. But they have to agree to our bottom lines. We will not form a coalition with any of the main parties if they don't respect the Bill of Rights. They don't treat it as a sacred document. They don't treat it as supreme law. If they don't do that, then how can we, in all good faith, go into a coalition with them?
No,
we can't. Totally.
Yeah, and that would be letting down all the voters who voted for Democracy NZ, wouldn't it? You know,
exactly. Our voters are a lot of them are ex-National and ex-Labor, and they just want they're fed up to the eyeballs with the two big major parties and what they're doing to us. I've got to answer this question here. If you got into Parliament, would you form a coalition with National? If this something Democracy NZ would consider? Absolutely, TJ. We it's not a given that we would form coalition with National, but if National and ACT make up if the country gives them more vote, then then the idea, this is the best case scenario for us. National and ACT have just about got the numbers to form a government. So it's quite on the cards that they'll be 59, 58, 59, or even 60 seats. Because in 30 years of MMP, there's only ever been one government formed without at least two coalition partners, the main party and then two coalition parties. And that was the 2020 election, which was a freak one with Labor. Prior to that, there's always been two coalition partners with the main party forming government. So that's the history of MMP for 30 odd years. And I don't think this election will be any different. No other party of the parties coming in, including New Zealand First, have a chance of winning an electorate seat. They just don't. So they have to win 5%, and 5% is a big ask. I've got a question for you here, Sandra. I've got a question for you. Who do you look for inspiration?
Okay, well, something about me, I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing, but I'm treating it as a good thing. I'm not easily impressed. I'm not impressed by names or titles or positional rank or money. So it's just who I am. But I am impressed by courage. And there's two people who should be household names in New Zealand history. I don't think they've, that they are household names. But anyway, what I'm calling my moment of what I'm doing is my Tania Harris moment. And for those who aren't familiar with the name Tania Harris, I'm just going to give you a little wee story about her. So in 1981, we're going back 40 odd years. And this was in Auckland. So you may not be familiar with her. And she was 22 at the time. And she led 50,000 New Zealanders down the main street of Auckland in the biggest outpouring of public demonstration since World War II. She called it the Kiwis Care March. Now, what they were protesting against was the silent majority were protesting strong-arm tactics by militant trade unionists in the wake of a confrontation with, at the time, Prime Minister Robert Muldoon. Basically, the trade unionists, 4,000 of them were holding the country to ransom. So the day before that she did her march, the trade unionists had walked up Queen Street. People were very, very unhappy. They were being booed and hissed and raised fists and everything. Anyway, it took Tania Harris, this little 22-year-old sales girl, and her simple slogan, Kiwis Who Care, to motivate ordinary New Zealanders to march in the streets. And this is what they said in one of the clips from the paper. Nervously holding a microphone thrust into her hand, the young Kiwi declared, "I'm Tania Harris. I'm a Kiwi and I'm proud to be a Kiwi. I'm also proud that you've all joined together to show your pride and unity in this country. We just pull together and not apart. We must have freedom of choice." And is that what we're doing right this minute? Yeah. So she only expected a tiny wee group to support her. She got a huge group and overnight became a national heroine. I'd love to know actually what she's doing now. So that's what I call courage. Very
absolutely. And I remember that story and I remember that woman, and it shows that the power of one woman and with the necessary, I guess, timing plus the drive in her to So I'm going to just go to one question. I'll come back to that because I know there's another part to that. I want to talk about Chris Young's asked a question: do national supports fluoridated water and mandating prisons, pensioners and beneficiaries and many other labours? I absolutely hear you, Chris, and I'll tell you this. I mean, the National Party wants to support genetic engineering to fight climate change. And I just think, but the climate change issue that we have been rammed down our throats for the last 2 decades about the catastrophe narrative, that's all changed. And it's only just changed in the last couple of years. And so we don't need to take the risk of genetic engineering in our country, because we are a unique country. We're surrounded by a moat. We're a beautiful country. And I'm very reluctant to risk the niche country that we are by introducing genetic engineering. And the reason, and so for me, and fluoridated water is just another way. It's a case of taking away our choice, our personal choice, if they put it in everything. So there's a lot of things about national that I believe we take issue with. And if the reality is this, if we get into Parliament at this election and they require our vote to form a government, then we have a lot of leverage. We have a lot of negotiating power. And we do not want to hold them to ransom. We don't want all the bells and whistles and baubles of office and ministerial roles and ministerial positions or deputy prime minister, any of that stuff. We don't want any of that. I just want a country with a strong, stable government that looks after its people and respects our rights. And if I get that, I'll be happy, and I will make sure that we have that strong, stable government. I won't hold them to ransom, but they have to agree to a few of our bottom lines in order to get across the line. And I tell you what, we will negotiate hard. We did a post on G and recently, and the reason we don't support it is because it opens a can of worms, and you can't let the horse out of the stable. You can't get it back in the stable once it's bolted. You can't undo it. You can't undo it. The reality is so true. Anyway, back to I know that you'd mentioned in previous conversations, Sandra, that you had a couple of people that you really inspired you. So who was the second?
Well, just talking a little about your GE, New Zealand actually has the amazing opportunity of being the organic country of the entire world. As you say, we're not being influenced by stuff from other countries, and here we are in this most perfect opportunity. And it's like we've got the best farmers in the world. We've got everything perfectly set up here to have the best food we already have. And if we go and do that dreadful stuff, we'll just become somebody else with bad food. So I just can't believe that is even something. I mean, I know they're stupid, but man, stupid's on steroids at the moment. Anyway, going on to a much nicer subject, yes. Who else inspires me? It's Nancy Wake. And for those of you who don't know who Nancy Wake is, she was born New Zealander, but she spent a lot of her growing up time in Australia, and then she moved to France. Now, Nancy Wake, she joined the French Resistance, and she earned the title of the most decorated woman of that war. Now, there's a film called The White Mouse. That was her code name. And she did amazing things in World War II. She was a journalist to begin with and risked her life in a network helping people escape, Allied servicemen, and she became the most hunted person by the Gestapo. They wanted her. So anyway, she lived to, I think it was 99, and she came back to Australia for some of that time as well. But it took a while for the people to actually give her all her decorations. So if you want an inspiring film to watch, it's called The White Mouse, Nancy Wake, and she's another very, very courageous woman who I totally admire.
Oh, that's lovely, Sandra. That is lovely. I just want to wrap it up with a couple of things. One of the things at Democracy NZ that we believe the current lot of politicians and parliamentarians, that they're not backing farmers. And just recently, I was reading it's a 2,500 page document. It's a report from the IPCC. And in it, it very clearly says some things buried deep in the report. I think page 1,014 is what I was told, and this is the passage I read from it. Basically, it said that they considered, I mean, the reason why as farmers, we're being attacked, being targeted, is that methane apparently was 28 times more potent than carbon dioxide. And therefore, methane is produced by the natural farming cycle, and it is a cycle, but anyway, put that one side, we were apparently the villains. And the latest report came back and said we got that all wrong. It's actually not 28 times, it's 7 times. And the amount of methane in the air is a fraction of a fraction. And the amount of man-made methane is a fraction of that fraction, because most methane occurs naturally in fermenting everything and forestry and even in volcanoes and everything. So the very idea that a country like New Zealand, which produces 0.17% of total world emissions, in other words, nothing we do will change anything in the world, nothing we do. So everything we do is virtue signaling. And if our farmers are the most efficient producers of food, and our only tool in the toolbox to cut our emissions is to reduce production, and a less efficient farmer in another part of the world picks up the slack, overall emissions go up. So for us at Democracy NZ, we say that targeting and taxing our farmers for virtue signaling purposes about climate change is a ridiculous scenario, and we will call it and fight it every step of the way. We are backed by science. We are not, this is not mumbo jumbo conspiracy stuff. This is reality. It's in their own reports, and we will call it. So if we get into Parliament, we will be calling every parliamentary politician out, including Chris Luxon, and he says, I've given Maureen Pugh some reading. Well, I'll give him some reading, some IPCC report reading, the actual body that made the reports that the government formed its own climate change policy on, and say, how about you read this paragraph on this page and come back to me and tell me targeting farmers and taxing farmers or reducing the most efficient producers of food in the world, New Zealand farmer, is actually going to do anything other than virtue signaling and break our economy. I'm on solid ground on that. And so for me, Sandra, having you and Rog in the Deep South, and Juanita in Christchurch, and Gordon, and, we've got Martin in Napier, and we've got Scotty in Port Waikato, you're in Kaikoura, you're in the Kaikoura electorate. We've got Doug Ellington just out of Christchurch. Who else have we got? We've got Leo in Auckland. We've got Sarah in Whangaparoa. We've got Di in Whangarei. There is just an amazing group of people. I'm sure I've missed someone out. Oh, yes, Chris in Whakatane. And I'm just thinking to myself, I know that I've missed someone out. But anyway, I've missed out quite a few, actually. I said Sarah. Oh, yes, and Craig. We've got Craig in Whangaparoa too. So that's Craig, Craig in Whangaparoa. So I pretty much think I've got the crew. And we're just so happy to have such a great team on board, and we're so happy to have you, Sandra, joining us, making up the team. And so I want to leave the last few words to you, and just whatever you'd like to say. I said Gordon. I did say Gordon. Teacher Joe, I did say Gordon. Yep, he was there, Waimakariri. So I'll leave the last few words with you, Sandra.
Thank you. So I've got a big job ahead of me, but it's going to be a team effort, because I need everybody's help. I'm just pretty new to this game. And but I'm going to play it by my rules, probably not theirs so much, because I don't like their rules. So we're going to stick with some good stuff. And it's so fantastic to be meeting all of these people, even though we're, in these terrible times, because of all this stuff that's happening. In fact, in so many ways, it's been the most amazing time. I'm meeting such beautiful souls everywhere I go, and they feel like family. And it's like, people for years, but our connections that we've found in this new space that we find ourselves has been just extraordinary. So I look forward to meeting lots more wonderful people. I look forward to you all doing what you can for me, even if it's just a tiny little thing, just because this is it's a responsibility for all of us, not just me, not just Matt, just not Democracy NZ. we owe it to New Zealand. It's a beautiful place to live, and let's keep it a beautiful place. So, you know the old saying: the only thing necessary for evil to triumph in the world is that good people do nothing. Now, I know there's so many people doing so many things. We're being pushed into a version of ourselves that we may not have ever thought existed, and I think that's a good thing. So all you people, we haven't actually mentioned too much about my electorate area, but I would just like to acknowledge that it goes from Ashley River right up to Picton, and that takes in Leithfield, Sefton. I think it takes in Waikuku Beach. I had a look at the boundary the other day on one map, and it was showing, so I need to check that one. Definitely Amberley, Cheviot, Culverden, Hanmer Springs, Kaikoura, Seddon, Blenheim, Woodburn, Picton, Spring Creek, Havelock, and Waikawa Bay, and I'm sure there'll be a few other little places that I've missed out. So we've got some of the most picturesque, beautiful country in New Zealand, and we have to look after it. We need it to be keeping beautiful, with all our beautiful vineyards. There's so many. I mean, Hanmer Springs, we've got all the hot pools there. Kaikoura, we've got all our amazing the seal colony and the fishing out there, and all those other bits and pieces that they do there. There's just so many good things. So I'm very proud and privileged to be the Kaikoura electorate candidate. So anyway. So I just want to encourage all my girls to be Tanya Harris's and Nancy Wakes, and let's get the show on the road.
Lovely, Sandra. We'll wrap it up with that. And it's lovely to have you on board, and the team is better for you. And we're in the home straight now. We've only got a few weeks to go to the election, so it's going to be hammered down all the way to the end. So on the election night, I want you exhausted on the ground from campaigning.
Will do.
Thanks a lot. See you guys.